Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and today I'm going to be reviewing In Magnificent Style, Pickett's Charge. This is designed by Herman Lutman, and this is the nice deluxe edition from Worthington Games. Alright, so here we are all set up with In Magnificent Style, Pickett's Charge. This is a solo-only game, and it's a bit of a push-your-luck game about Pickett's Charge, where we are the Confederate units, and we are trying to make it all the way across this field and charge into the Union line up here. And of course, they are going to be determined not to let us do that. So there are a lot of smaller complexities to this game, such as making sure that you notice where there are obstacles which affect your movement, looking at areas that provide a little bit of cover and reduce hits. You have to watch out for the angle where your odds of getting hit go up, and you're going to have to do some bayonet combat if and when you reach the other end. There's also a lot of card play in this game. So what you're going to run into is moments where you're going to draw a card. And when you pull the card, there is a Confederate event on the top in gray and a Union event on the bottom in blue. And so there are a whole lot of different things that can happen in the course of play. But at its heart, this is a super simple push your luck game where you're rolling dice and you're trying to move up as far as you possibly can. One of the things that's kind of nice about this game is that everything is printed on the board, which means that, yeah, you do need to read the rules, but you actually will have a whole lot of shorthand to help you out. So you're going to have a Union activity phase where you draw a blue event. You're going to have a follow me phase where you assign your generals to whatever unit you want them to be with for the turn. And then you're going to have a Confederate unit activation phase. So all of these units are going to have to activate at some point on any given turn. And you have 5 turns total in the game to get them from here to there. So as you can see, things get a little bit tougher as you go along that turn track. And there are even little times printed up there to indicate where, like in the timing of Pickett's Charge you are. But everyone's going to activate. And then basically you're going to choose whether you're going to move or regroup. And basically what that'll mean is that you're going to keep rolling these dice. So this wasn't the best roll, but it wasn't the worst either. If you look at a 6 and 1 combo, it's against the wind. And let's say if I began with this unit down here, this unit would take 1 hit and move 1 space. Or the unit would take 2 hits and move 1 space and enter an obstacle. Then I would get to draw 1 blue card and 1 gray card. So basically some of the results are good for me. I get to move. Some of them are bad for me. I get hurt and have to draw a Union event. But basically, I can roll these dice as many times as I want and just keep trying to advance my units up the board. But I'm going to have to decide when I want to stop. Because one thing that's also very interesting is that as you move up with your unit, your rally point does not move up with you. Let's say that I managed to move up a few of these squares. If I don't stop and regroup soon, my rally point's going to stay back here. So for example, if I take some heavy fire and it forces me to move back to my rally point, and my rally point is back here, even all those good rolls that got me a little bit further up the board are going to be as nothing because I didn't stop and regroup. So at the end of your movement, you get to regroup and move your rally point up and mark it done. And you're going to do that for everybody along the row in whatever order you want. But essentially, the real heart of the game is trying to roll the dice to advance these units and trying to choose the right moments to regroup and stop trying to push your luck so that you can move your rally point up and not get forced all the way back to the beginning because you thought you were getting lucky and then you had a problem. There are also lots of little things going on. So for example, you have some artillery fire and we don't actually know what's under these tokens at the beginning of the game. There's a lot of misses in here, but there's also things that will help to suppress the Union soldiers. And there are also a few ways to mitigate your rolls in this game. So every division is going to have a general with them who can flip and take special general actions. One of which is a reroll, which you're going to want to use a lot. You've also got 2 of these Longstreet tokens. They're one and done. Once you use them, they're gone, but they're very, very handy in a pinch. And there will also be various helps and hindrances that come from the cards that force you to put some of these tokens out. So you might get a rebel yell that helps you advance. You might get some smoke that helps to disguise you, but something bad could happen too. You also might need to make some strategic choices in terms of how close you want your units to be together, because whenever there are 3 in a row, that are adjacent to each other, you can form a battle line and move them up in a group because they draw some confidence from each other. And so the other thing is, if you've got one unit that's getting out too far ahead, they can't help their neighbors as they all advance together. So overall, it's a fairly simple game. And you really are just pushing your luck, rolling the dice, trying to get where you need to go. At the same time, there are quite a few decisions to be made. When do I stop? Who do I activate in what order? Where do I put my generals? How do I use some of the benefits I might get from the cards? How do I handle bad choices that come from the blue events? There is plenty to think about in this game, even if you are basically just rolling dice and trying to move forward. So with that said, let's go ahead and have some final thoughts. All right, so now for some final thoughts. I will say I have deeply mixed feelings about In Magnificent Style because of its topic. So I'm going to start by talking about it as a game first, and then we're going to talk about my misgivings on the subject matter. So first things first, I think that this game is overall an excellent push your luck game. It's very fun. It is surprisingly engaging, and that feeling that maybe you want to roll the dice one more time to see if you can advance one more space is very, very strong in this one. I would say that as a game system, a solo game system, it's super fun. It's really the nice weeknight kind of solo game vibe that I'm often looking for, and I generally think very highly of it as a game. I will say that there are maybe a few too many little rules, and what I mean by that is it's very easy to do things like forget to draw a card, or forget an effect that there was from a card, or be a little bit confused about what you're actually supposed to do with a token, because the base structure of the game is just so intuitive and so strong. And then there are like little things to track that almost feel like an intrusion rather than, something that belongs like inherently, intuitively in the game. That said, this didn't really bother me too much. I loved that a lot of the rules and steps were printed on the board. It was super easy to get playing. It was super easy to, find little reminders of the basic stuff on the actual board, which I personally like. And I thought the graphic design for this was really, really nice. The field is detailed enough to look like somebody put some research into it, which I know that Luttmann did, and I know that his artist would also have done the same. But then it's also clear enough to really see where you're moving, and things like the different colors outlining the areas that get closer and closer to the Union soldiers were really nice. And overall, I just thought that it was a clean visual presentation that I really enjoyed. And I did like a lot of the attention to detail. You can tell that a lot of research has gone into Pickett's Charge, so even though this is like a simple little die rolling game, the details and the things that you can do in the game are very deeply rooted in history, and that is something that I typically really enjoy in my historical games. This one manages to be light and fun, while also packing quite a bit of information about Pickett's Charge in the cards, in the flavor text, in the rule book. I felt like I came away knowing quite a bit about something in history that I typically avoid. So I think that is where I need to transition in terms of my final thoughts. Overall, I really like this game. I think highly of it as a game. I think it's a nice design, and I'm not going to be able to keep it. And the reason I can't keep it is because I just can't stand Civil War stuff. That's a personal preference. I have no personal issue with you if you like to play Civil War games, so, don't take it wrong. But, I grew up in the American South. My grandparents went through a big genealogy phase, and I found out that a lot of people in my family tree are Confederate soldiers. Like, I've been told as if it was an exciting thing by my grandparents that, oh, you could join the Daughters of the Confederacy if you wanted to. And frankly, I'd rather do just about anything than join the Daughters of the Confederacy. I am kind of grossed out by my own family history and like what my ancestors did. I don't feel comfortable with that legacy at all. I do not particularly enjoy lost cause narratives or touting the bravery of Confederate soldiers because I don't think that their cause was a noble one. And, you can talk about states' rights, but until you go and read those documents and see what they were actually fighting about, I don't really think that's a great argument. So, I don't want to get too far down that road in this video, but suffice it to say, I personally do not like Pickett's Charge as a game topic because I think that there is a whole lot of just romanticizing of this narrative when, if you look at modern historians, they say that Pickett's Charge was actually strategically pretty stupid. It's just that the Faulkner, like, oh, every Southern boy can imagine it's 3 p.m. the day of Gettysburg. Like, no, like, I just can't stand it. I absolutely cannot. So if the topic doesn't bother you, I think this game is awesome. If the topic bothers you like it bothers me, then it's hard to just relax and have fun with it, even though it is a very well-designed game and it's a lovely production. I do think that, you can also talk to yourself, depending on what your internal narrative is, about, the charge. Like maybe for you can interpret the game as, an illustration of how silly this charge was and how dangerous it was for the people who went through it. Not even all the Confederate generals thought it was a good idea at the time on the day. So, that's not a crazy interpretation. But for me, it just felt too much like valorizing something that I would prefer to never see valorized. So again, like if this topic doesn't bother you, or if you enjoy Civil War stuff, I mean, it's a great game. I really can't fault it for anything other than maybe there's a few too many little things going on in what is otherwise just this really sleek design. But when you're gaming history, you have to think about what history you're communing with and the way in which you do it, and that is going to be something that, because of the topic, isn't going to work for everybody. That said, I do know there's another game that uses a similar system called Crowbar that's about D-Day from Lutman, and so I would actually really like to play that one. I think that I might really enjoy seeing this system re-implemented with a theme that I find more noble and palatable than this. So that's where I'm at on In Magnificent Style. I think it's solid gameplay. I think that it is a very enjoyable solo game, as long as you can stomach the topic, which I personally cannot. So that's where I'm at. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and most of all, happy gaming.